You know, I always thought the worst part about owning a pool would be keeping up with the endless chores, scrubbing filters, fishing out soggy leaves, shelling out for chlorine every other week. But I was wrong. I was so wrong. Because nothing could have prepared me for the nightmare that was Karen, my next-door neighbor, and her army of freeloaders who treated my backyard like the neighborhood's all-access water park. Day or night, it didn't matter. If the weather was even half decent, Karen and her crew were slipping through my gate, blasting music, popping wine, splashing around like it was senior year spring break. They'd leave behind a mess that would make a frat house blush. Beer bottles bobbing in the shallow end, greasy chip bags stuck to the deck, muddy footprints tracked across my kitchen tiles. At first, I tried to be civil about it. "Hey, Karen, can you maybe ask before you use the pool?" I'd say, smiling through my teeth, thinking she'd get the hint. But Karen just gave me that look. Eyebrows up, lips pursed, the kind of smirk only a professional HOA tyrant could master, and said, "Oh, don't be so selfish. It's just water." That was her favorite word, selfish. Never mind the fact it was my pool, my bills, my back breaking to keep that place clean. You know what I mean? It wasn't always like this. For 20 years I busted my butt in construction, rain or shine, dreaming about a place with a little patch of green, a pool out back, something I could call mine. When I finally got it, a brick house with a faded deck and a pool that sparkled blue. Under the Texas sun, I thought I'd made it. I'd mow the lawn, clean the gutters, then just sit back with a beer while the kids played. It wasn't Beverly Hills, but it was home. At least until Karen decided it was hers, too. Now, Karen, she's that neighbor, the one every neighborhood has, but you never think will end up next to you. Early 50s, bottle blonde, voice like a car alarm at 3 a.m. Sunglasses always perched on her nose, barking orders about trash bins and lawn heights, as if she owned the whole street. Used to be on the HOA board, got herself booted for conduct unbecoming, which I guess is HOA speak for queen-sized pain in the butt, but you'd never know it, the way she still strutted around with her clipboard like a five-star general. It started out small. A few wet towels that weren't ours, a whiff of perfume by the pool, the sound of giggling drifting over the fence. Then, one day, I caught her, full-on, pink swimsuit, wine tumbler in hand, sprawled across my deck chair like she was starring in her own reality show. I tried being polite, really, but when "Can you please stop" didn't work, and "This is private property" got me laughed at. I started getting angry. The more I pushed back, the more she doubled down. Before long, she was bringing the whole circus, friends, boyfriends, you name it. They'd crank up Bon Jovi, blast country hits, leave floaties and empty cans behind. One day I came home to find a half-deflated flamingo float covered in lipstick, bobbing like a wounded animal. And then, as if that wasn't enough, Karen started posting pictures on Facebook. Her, arms up in my pool, captioned "Best free amenity in the neighborhood. HOA privilege. Sharing is caring." That was it. That was the line. So I started collecting evidence, photos, videos, screenshots, because I knew if I took this to the HOA, Karen would twist it into a debate about community spirit and somehow make me the villain. I sat out back one night, sipping beer, just stewing, when I noticed the industrial-strength bleach in my shed. The label practically screamed, "Caution." And suddenly, like a light bulb, the idea hit me. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to call the cops or the HOA. No, I'd let Karen enjoy the pool, on my terms. All week, I planned. I read up on pool chemistry, pH levels, chlorine shock, what happens when you accidentally overdo it. Turns out, a little too much bleach and you don't get a toxic wasteland, just dry hair, itchy skin, faded swimsuits, and a lot of. The trap was set. The next afternoon, Karen and her friends waltzed in like clockwork, towels and wine glasses in tow. They dove right in, whooping and hollering, music blaring. For the first few minutes, I thought maybe I'd overdone it. But then, then, the scratching started. One woman rubbed her arms, frowning. Another started squirming, looking uncomfortable. And then, the grand finale. Karen reached up, shrieked, "My hair! Oh my God, what's happening to my hair?" I swear, it was like watching a horror movie unfold in real time. Her perfectly dyed blonde started turning to straw, clumping together, frizzing out. Her friends scrambled out, scratching, yelling about burning skin. One slipped, almost face-planted. Karen, dripping and furious, stumbled out of the pool. Her hair sticking up like she'd been electrocuted, mascara streaming down her cheeks. I caught the whole thing on video. Yep, security cameras rolling. I sat there, sipping a beer, watching the replay, feeling like I'd just won the Super Bowl. For the first time, Karen was humiliated. She wrapped herself in a towel and stormed home, trailing her soggy crew like defeated puppies. That week, she skipped her morning patrols, skipped yelling at the kids, skipped everything. Neighbors started whispering about her hay bale hair. One guy leaned in at the mailbox, said, "Heard her pool party. Went bad. Serves her right." Even her closest friends started avoiding her. But Karen wasn't done. She tried to save face at the next HOA meeting, marched right up, scarf hiding her ruined hair. Voice pitched high, and accused me of chemical warfare, demanded an investigation, claimed she was a victim. That's when I stood up, calm as could be, and said, "Karen, how would you know so much about the chemical levels in my pool unless you'd been trespassing?" And then, I played the footage for the whole room. Her and her squad sneaking in, partying, melting down. The board president just shook his head, hit her with a trespassing fine, and banned her from community amenities for 6 months. Karen tried to protest, but the crowd was already laughing. She was finished. Of course, she tried to fight back, spread gossip, played the victim, even called the cops. The officer took one look at the footage and said, "Ma'am, maybe stop breaking into your neighbor's yard." She tried throwing a backyard party, but her pool was a mess, nobody came, and she ended up alone, staring at her own algae green water. Meanwhile, my yard became the new neighborhood. Hangout, neighbors waving, stopping by, kids asking if they could swim, with permission, of course. The HOA even posted a notice about respecting private property, no names mentioned. But everyone knew. But Karen wasn't built to disappear quietly. She tried little things, salting my lawn, tossing trash on my driveway, but I just smiled. She was spiraling, and everyone saw it. At the summer block party, she showed up in a hat and sunglasses, clipboard in hand, barking orders, but people just laughed. The HOA president shut her down for good. "Karen, you have no authority. Here, consider yourself lucky you're not facing legal charges." She stormed off, clipboard clattering, and the crowd actually cheered. That night, sitting by my pool with my family, peace finally felt real. And if you've made it this far, here's what I want you to remember. This wasn't just about bleach or revenge or one nightmare neighbor. It was about boundaries, about not surrendering to bullies just to keep the peace. Sometimes you have to get creative, fight smart, and remind people that respect goes both ways. So what about you? What's the craziest neighbor or HOA story you've ever dealt with? Drop a comment below. Let's see just how wild these stories get. And if you're still with me, maybe hit that share button. Because you never know who needs to hear how the pool war was finally won. If I thought that last poolside victory meant the end of Karen and her drama, well, that was wishful thinking on my part. You know how some folks just can't stand not having the last word? Yeah, Karen was absolutely one of those. For a minute, it was peaceful, almost too peaceful, like that eerie calm before a Texas thunderstorm. My backyard felt safe again. I'd fire up the grill, the kids would cannonball into the water, neighbors dropped by with six-packs and barbecue tips, and you could just feel this weird sense of community building. Something we honestly hadn't felt since before Karen decided my pool was her personal spa. But people like Karen, they don't quit. They regroup, they plot, and they wait for their next moment. I started noticing little things, tiny acts of defiance that, honestly, would have been hilarious if they weren't so pathetic. Dead patches on my front lawn, like someone poured salt under cover of darkness. Trash bags showing up beside my driveway after midnight. Even a couple of anonymous, concerned neighbor letters taped to my door, warning about the dangers of improper pool chemicals. All signed a friend. Yeah, okay. At first, I let it go. No point in lowering myself, right? But you know what? After everything Karen put us through, it just made me shake my head and laugh. I knew the whole neighborhood was watching now, waiting to see if I'd snap, or if Karen would cook up something bigger. Well, the big moment finally came at the neighborhood's annual summer block party. You ever been to one of those? Kids on scooters, dads manning the grill, people you haven't seen all year suddenly popping up with homemade potato salad. It's chaos, but the good kind. And this time, there was an extra charge in the air. Everyone wanted to see what Karen would do, now that she'd lost her self-appointed crown. Sure enough, she rolled in late, wearing a sun hat the size of a satellite dish, big sunglasses, and that same old clipboard, like she thought dressing the part would get her power back. She started off muttering about parking violations. Smoke from the barbecue drifting toward her backyard. Even had the nerve to lecture some kid about riding his scooter too fast. But instead of people scurrying away or pretending to listen, the crowd just laughed. I mean, out loud. You could see the shock on Karen's face when folks rolled their eyes or made jokes back. Even the HOA president, Michael, finally stepped up and said, "Karen, you're not on the board anymore. Please, enjoy the party, or not." She stormed off, muttering, her clipboard trembling like she wanted to throw it at somebody. That should have been it. But the thing about Karen is, her pride was like a wounded animal, cornered and desperate. She doubled down with rumors. Started whispering to anyone who'd listened that I'd poisoned my pool. Tried to turn people against me. Even told folks I was some kind of secret menace. But at this point, nobody was buying it. The best twist? Her own little circle of friends, her pool posse, started drifting away. I guess humiliation's contagious, because after that infamous bleach meltdown, nobody wanted to risk becoming a meme in the next viral neighborhood video. Of course, Karen tried one last Hail Mary. She actually called the cops again. I kid you not. There I was, mowing the yard, when a patrol car pulled up. The officer was polite, a little weary. And when he asked what was going on, I just pointed to the security camera mounted above my back door. I said, "If you need proof, it's all there." He actually smiled. "Yeah, we've seen it," he said. "You're not the first person Karen's called about a pool this year." He left without another word, and that was that. But Karen? She just couldn't stop herself. She tried hosting her own backyard comeback party, invited the whole block, probably hoping she'd win her loyalists back. But the turnout was embarrassing. Her pool was still a mess, the water cloudy, furniture half busted. And after about 30 minutes of awkward small talk and warm boxed wine, people bailed. I spotted Karen alone by her algae green pool, staring into the water like it might magically fix her life. Meanwhile, my backyard was busier than ever. Neighbors I barely knew dropped by, bringing food, offering to help paint the fence, laughing about the good old days. The kids played. My wife actually relaxed, and the neighborhood just felt lighter. Even the HOA started working better. Less drama, more actual problem solving. Funny how one person can suck all the oxygen out of a place, and how fast things can bloom when they're finally out of power. I gotta say, there was a poetic justice to all of it. Karen spent years bossing people around with the rules, making folks afraid to step out of line, and now, after a little creativity and a whole lot of patience, she was the one hiding behind closed doors, afraid to show her face. Even the community newsletter, in its oh-so-polite way, posted a gentle reminder about respecting boundaries and property, no names mentioned. But let's be real, everybody knew. The best part? I didn't have to do anything more. Karen's downfall was self-sustaining, fueled by her own pride and stubbornness. Every week, her legend faded just a bit more, until she became almost invisible, a background character.